to your point about, this is, these are like these deep foundational wounds, right? I don't know how to categorize capitalism. Oh, capitalism is an ism. There you go. I was gonna say I wasn't sure how to capitalize it with like categorize it with like racism, sexism. But yeah, capitalism is an ism, right? And like when we think about like those systemic things, it's like we operate in a world in which those exists, and like doing restorative work is about being anti-racist. It is about being like anti-sexist or feminist, whichever word fits better, right?
Yeah.
And like this anti-capitalism piece is often left out of the conversation, and I know we often talk around it, just given the limits of the communities that we operate in, because like we all understand, right, there are limited funds. How do we fix that restoratively? Because like, I was having this conversation with Jorge Santos, who I'll just shout out, is someone who was on one of was on this podcast at the beginning of this calendar year. He shared the graphic of the people watching the baseball game, right? Where it's like equality versus equity, and then on his there was reality, right, where you have three people standing on boxes, and there was the fence, right? There was one person was standing in a ditch, so they could barely see even like the fence, right? There was one person who was standing on a box, who could just like barely see over the fence, and then there was another person who was, you couldn't even see the person because like the boxes were just stacked up so high, right? And my question to him was, so what are we going to do with those boxes? Because like the money in the world exists, right? Asking nicely doesn't work. Violence doesn't necessarily work either. Like, so are we knocking down those boxes? Are we asking nicely for some more boxes? And I think like, what that graphic leaves out, because, there are limits to a graphic, is, the amount of people who are in the categories of like just being able to see over the fence and who are, in the ditch are 90% of the population, right? 90+% of the population. And with those people who have all the boxes, all of the resources, that's such a small segment of the population. And so like capitalism has created that. How do we restoratively remedy that?
I always sit with those images and all the iterations that have happened over time. Like, I just don't care about a baseball game either.
True. Yeah.
And so I wonder I just want the invitation, because we know graphics have limit. Like, what do people want to see? And so it reminds me of, so in Maisha's work with History Matters, Race Matters, Justice Matters, Language Matters, towards like the possibility of our future mattering differently. Like, I want, what does that look like to be able to like, this is the thing I want to see. And so that's the journey. When I decided to quit St. Paul Public Schools, I knew I'm a single mom. I'm like, I've been responsible for keeping myself and children in clothes that fit and shoes that fit and that don't embarrass my children as much as possible. And, all that business. So, and the work is not for me to be to be the circle keeper in a whole bunch of different spaces. The work is not for me to be an expert. Like, it's quirky to even sit in that. Like, people refer to me as sort of as a consultant, and I guess that works as a verb, like what I'm doing. But I also it's what I want to vision towards, or to be able to create a restorative cooperative. Because the Twin Cities, for example, has a ton of small nonprofit RJ themed spaces, right, that are serving this school district or serving this county. And what I've come to understand, sitting in the cushion of public education, where I had a salary and benefits and retirement, was watching those organizations struggle. You've got, Nancy sent out recently like postings for working in these 3 school districts for these kind of days. And I think it would amount to like $25 an hour. Like, oh gosh. So really want circle keepers and restorative practitioners and the folks in the Twin Cities community and beyond, but most locally Twin Cities community, to be able to come together to nourish one another, to be practicing with one another, because the educator in me knows that I am better for, more healthy, more grounded for every circle that I'm in, that I'm not the circle keeper. It's super duper important for me to be in spaces where I am in practice and passing the talking piece, and I could go through the whole experience without the responsibility or the sense of I'm the one that should say the next prompt. And I don't think spaces get that, because they are like, they need every single penny and need to take all of the jobs, or do take all of the jobs, right, in these different spaces where they're getting $25 an hour.